grandchildren, today, guns drawn.
It is almost the exact opposite tone and tenor that you normally expect. And remember, what was supposed to be happening today is normally just a ceremony. It's a bit of pomp and circumstance, the certifying of these results. And as you say, it comes at a time where normally you have a new Congress getting ready to get to work. It's a completely opposite night and day image. And I mean, it's so surreal. The fact that you are seeing these images from the floor, breaking windows, taking over the steps like that. The Confederate flag, as Tom mentions. We've seen images of protesters, and, we should point out that that's probably not the word we should be using. These anarchists climbing up the scaffolding, getting right outside what appeared to be the windows of Mitch McConnell's office, banging on those windows. The reports of some of the president's supporters going essentially door by door through the halls of the Capitol, looking for senators and lawmakers. I mean, this is just un-American, doesn't come close to describing what we are seeing here. And those calls are continuing to grow from Republicans and Democrats saying the president has got to stop this. You've seen the vice president now coming out and doing just that. Pence coming out and tweeting that the violence has to stop, that this must stop now. The vice president going further than President Trump has been willing to go so far. President Trump only calling for peace. Republicans say that's not enough. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer just issued a joint statement saying that's not enough, that the president has to urge his supporters to back off and end this immediately.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to bring in Congresswoman Nancy Mace, Republican of South Carolina, just elected in November. Congresswoman Mace, what a way to begin your career in the Congress. What should the president do right now?
The president needs to do something. This is not a protest. This is anarchy. It's un-American. And I thought that the Republican Party was the party of law and order. And we've got to keep America safe. We've got to support our police. I saw a video earlier of our law enforcement, our Capitol Police being attacked, physically attacked on the grounds of the Capitol. This is wrong on so many levels. I'm devastated. I'm sad for our nation right now.
And how do you explain it? You got elected as a Republican in South Carolina. That is Trump country. How do you explain how so many people can be so incited to believe so many false claims to the point where they storm the Capitol? Congresswoman? Apparently, we've lost our connections, our phone calls right now. As you see the Trump banner being flown there over the Capitol at this point. Pierre Thomas, let me go to you, our Chief Justice correspondent. What more do we know about where the reinforcements are, what the National Guard is going to do?
George, the D.C. National Guard, the Virginia National Guard, 200 Virginia State troopers are being dispatched to the scene. We're also being told, in addition to the federal law enforcement officials being asked to help the Capitol Police, we're also being told that local law enforcement, Arlington County Police, Montgomery County, Maryland Police are being asked to step in. I just was on the phone a little while ago with a law enforcement official who said there are no words. And the great concern tonight, George, is as we head toward dusk, as we head toward nightfall, that once they clear the building, what are they going to do to try to get these people off the Capitol grounds? That is the issue, and the images that will spring forth from that in terms of how they handle it is what law enforcement is discussing, trying to assess now. How do they get the situation under control inside the building, but also how to clear the grounds, George? That's an incredible undertaking, and as nightfall approaches, that is the concern, George.
Pierre, it will not be lost on a lot of people who remember that day back in June when there were protesters in Lafayette Square, how quickly and with what force there was a response.
Well, I'm hearing from, people.
Military?
I don't think it's tear gas. I think it's
George, I have not talked to military in the last little while, but what I want to tell you is right now there's some sort of gas coming over there. Again, we're on the north side of the Capitol. This whole group is by the security area, and they are shouting, "Let us in, let us in, let us in." I have been to Trump rallies before. I have been threatened before in places. This seems very real. This is out of control here. There's no law enforcement in this area, and there are truly thousands of people here who are not leaving. I think let's go back to the military there again, George. I'm sure at some point the military is going to come and help out in this situation, or the D.C. Guard or somebody, because this entire plaza is filled with Trump supporters. And I'm not sure if Trump tweeted right now, go home, that they would go home. They are saying over and over again, this is our house. This is our house, and we have a right to go in there. And this is far from over. We are seeing either Capitol Police or DHS with riot shields up there right now. We don't know whether it was tear gas. There was a crowd saying it was tear gas and coming towards us, and that's why we backed up. But they're now again shouting USA, 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 still trying to get into that building. The one thing that is very clear is Washington, D.C. was not prepared for this in any way. The lack of law enforcement, I mean, I'm sure law enforcement is getting together to try and figure out how to clear this, but they were not prepared for anything like this. This is a dangerous situation, and it's not going to abate very soon.
It doesn't appear that it will. And Tom Yamas, we're just learning that we have confirmed that an explosive device was discovered at the Republican National Committee.
Yeah, our investigative producers, both Jack Date and John Santucci, making calls on this. They have confirmed that there was a suspicious package at the RNC. They understand it to be a pipe bomb. It has since been detonated so far. Nobody was hurt in that. But it speaks to the severity and the level of security right now that we're dealing with on this day. And as Martha has said, it's chilling, George, that this was able to happen. We're going on 2-3 hours now. And, you know, these were MAGA supporters of the president. Imagine if this group had intentions to do something even worse in Capitol Hill. Clearly, they were not ready for this.
No, it appears that they were not. Okay, Tom, thanks very much. I want to go back to Cecilia Vega. Cecilia, we were just talking to Chris Christie moments ago. He said he tried to get through to the president. His call did not go through. What more are we hearing from inside the White House? Is there anyone the president will listen to at this point?
Inside and outside the White House, George. So I'm talking to sources who are close to the president. It's not just Chris Christie who can't get through. We're talking about people who are normally in the president's inner circle, people who are close to the president inside the White House and out, who cannot get through the president. And I will tell you, this source is describing this to me as real concern right now among those who are close to President Trump about how to get through to him, how to get this message to him. There is consensus among this group of people close to the president that they strongly believe that he needs to get on television. He needs to get on television soon. They are trying to get this message to him, but that he is not taking these phone calls. They want him to, with his own voice, not over Twitter, call on these protesters to leave and to leave immediately and to condemn what it is that they are seeing right now. There's talk about calling on the cabinet. Where is the cabinet, people are saying at this point, and whether or not they need to be getting involved in this. We are hearing also from our John Santucci and Catherine Falders, who are reporting that, and I want to give you a little bit more color on what people inside the White House are saying, that people are pushing the president to do more and condemn this violence, that some staffers avoided going to work today because they were so nervous about what would happen, and that the president has been in such a rage for so many days that they didn't want to be anywhere near him. And now some sources are telling our team that they're talking about potential resignations as a result of what they're seeing take place in our city today and in our government today, because they're frankly so disgusted by what they're what they're seeing on television. But George, you know, but it is important to convey this sense of concern. You know, Donald Trump, as we've been talking about, is someone who has kept a circle, and he keeps a team of advisors around him and people that he leans on to make decisions, and that people who can't get through to him right now to convey this message to him that he is the one who can stop this, that he is the one who instigated this, and he is the one who can stop this, that the concern is growing in the top levels of the administration and in this inner circle of Donald Trump's, that they're not able to get this message to him.
Thank you, Cecilia. Terry Moran, I want to circle back to something we were discussing before in a bit of a different context with the appointment of Merrick Garland, but I want to get to the broader question of accountability. You've heard several in the last several days, particularly after that phone call where the president was asking the Secretary of State of Georgia basically change the votes in that state. What could be done for accountability? Should the House consider, it's not practical at this point, should the House consider impeaching in the final 40 days? But what is the proper forum for accountability after seeing a situation unfold like this?
Well, that's a very important question, George. For the Congress and for the American people, look, there are 330 million of us. These people do not represent the country, but they can make a mess, and they do represent a constituency that could be inspired and encouraged by what they're seeing. And so a response is undoubtedly necessary. The problem is we have a tradition in law, confirmed, frankly, under the presidency of Donald Trump, that the president is kind of beyond the law. We like to say no president is above the law, no man or woman is above the law. But look at the history. Nixon got away with it. Trump, the impeachment failed. And here, if you raised impeachment, which you could even in the final days, because impeachment and removal from office can also carry the penalty of disqualification from ever holding public office, honor, or trust again under the United States. And so that is a possibility if the Congress wants to hold Donald Trump responsible for it, which he clearly is. The problem is that the presidency has really risen to such a place of power and insulation from those kinds of restraints, unlike in other countries, that Donald Trump really took advantage of it throughout his presidency, on that call to Georgia, on the call to the president of Ukraine, on the calling of people out into the streets in front of the Capitol today. And why isn't he saying anything now? Why isn't he calling on them to leave the Capitol grounds and let the Congress do its business, as Chris Christie said? Because I think he thinks there might be an opportunity here. I think that's the way he operates. And he sees, maybe this is the way.
What we're seeing now, thank you, Terry, what we're seeing now are those armed police on the steps of the Capitol facing off against the protesters. John Carl, Terry Moran used the word insulated right there. And it does appear that, every president of the United States ends up being in something of a bubble. It's hard to escape when you're surrounded by Secret Service, surrounded by acolytes and aides for 4 years. In this case, it's even more profound. Many wonder, does the president even believe what he's saying? Does he know the difference between true and false?
George, I was just on the phone with the president's former chief of staff, John Kelly, so I didn't fully hear your question, but he was reacting in horror to what he had seen. He told me this is as un-American as anything I have seen. And he also said this is what happens when you take the attitude of let's just let Trump be Trump, a criticism of those currently around the president, including his current chief of staff, Mark Meadows.
Okay.
Possible in this nation.
And we're seeing the images of smoke inside the Capitol building, the protesters walking freely through Statuary Hall. Congressman, the fact of the matter is that President Trump has not condemned this, has not called on the protesters to stand down. You've been a staunch ally of the president. Can you convince him to come out right now? Will you do that?
As I was stuck within my room, I called the president, explained to him what was going on. I know he put a tweet out. I begged him to go talk to the nation. Don't do it by Twitter. I know that he's doing a message right now. I called back. This has got to stop, and I know a message is supposed to come out shortly.
So you believe the president is going to be speaking about this, and when you say a message is coming shortly, what does that mean? Is some kind of a videotape message?
That's what I believe. When I was just calling back again to him, and I understand that's what was taking place right now.
And you talk about all of us taking responsibility, and that's well placed. And I think all of us have to think about and reflect on what's going on as we see this image of a mob moving through the Capitol that none of us could ever imagine in this country. What responsibility do you feel yourself as Republican leader of the House, as someone who did not recognize the election of Joe Biden, who has protested these votes?
Well, let's not put words in each other's mouth, okay? The one thing I will tell you is I believe every election should be fair and accurate. I have no problem. I still have House races that aren't determined yet. I've got a person who lost a race, a Democrat in the House, contesting it inside Congress right there. That's fair. Those are the rules. That's the possibility. But nowhere does it ever say to take this type of action. We can disagree with one another. You've been in those chambers. You know people have different agreements, but you can sit and we're all Americans first. This type of activity has got to stop, and it didn't just start today. I've watched time and again other members, I get them on both sides, that would say, you need to go confront them in their house. You need to confront them and yell at them. Look, I've had a friend shot a colleague. I've watched people protest within my house. We have a First Amendment, but this is beyond the First Amendment. People do not have right to do this. People planned within here. People, you will find later the things people brought into this. There was shooting going on that I've heard within here. This is not the America we know. This is un-America. We are the beacon of democracy. This is not our best. This is what we're supposed to show to the nation. This is my saddest day as a member of Congress. And what we have to do is take this moment to take this divide in this nation and understand we could have differences of opinion. You have the right of speech, but you do not have a right to take it to the level that I've watched people have done time and time again.
Will things change after this? Is there a way to heal this breach in our country, in the Congress?
There has to be. Look, I know the greatness of this nation. I know we are exceptional. These, at our lowest points at times, can we wake up with each other? Can we realize that what has gone too far? I can disagree with a person and still love them as a person. We can debate. What should happen here is the public should be able to be sitting in that chamber watching us debate and just think of the things that we debated in that chamber, from the 13th Amendment, from the idea of civil rights. But the idea of this transpiring today is wrong, and anybody associated with it is wrong.
That is very clear, Congressman. Thank you for saying it. Thank you for condemning what we've seen right there. And good luck healing that breach in the coming days in this new Congress. Appreciate your time right now. We have been told that, in fact, the president has released a video. We're going to be playing it as soon as we can right now. First, I want to bring in Kellyanne Conway, who, of course, has been counsel to the president for the last several years. We don't have the video yet, Kellyanne. We're hoping to have it ready to air in just a minute. What is the president saying? Is he prepared to condemn this action?
Sure. I've watched the video, George. Thanks for having me on. The president tells them to go home and go in peace. He tells them he understands that they think that the election has been stolen, but there shouldn't be violence, to go home and to go in peace. And basically he's telling the Capitol, telling people at the Capitol what frankly was my message to him over an hour ago, which is tell them to get out and go home. And these are not peaceful protests. And I want to tell everyone, particularly people who support President Trump, if you condemn looting and rioting this summer, and many of us did, you need to condemn it now. What I see, the images coming out of the Capitol, people think it's appropriate and legal and funny. It's not, folks. It's none of the above. To go looting through Speaker Pelosi's office, to go screaming through the bowels of our sacred Capitol buildings, and I'm telling you, these are extremists, and in many cases, they look like anarchists rather than people who are peacefully protesting.
But Kellyanne,
and I think they give a bad look
weren't these people
to the
incited
president's legacy and also the 74 million people who voted for him. That's
perhaps,
not the base.
but weren't they incited by the president himself? He was speaking to that group just hours ago, around 11 o'clock this morning. He was calling on Twitter for people to come out to these protests in Washington, D.C., saying they're going to be wild.
There shouldn't be violence of any kind. Destruction is not part of democracy in its purest form. There are many ways to dissent. There are many ways to disagree. There are many ways to be upset that maybe your candidate didn't prevail. Look, I was in Georgia on Sunday and Monday. I talked about the two Senate candidates, but you had a lot of people there talking about the presidential election still. And I've been in touch with the mayor's office, Mayor Bowser. I'm glad that the president has authorized the National Guard to go. I think that's very helpful. I know that she's got a curfew going on. That will be helpful. But this is a moment for all of us to come together. And George, I have to tell you, I hope these calls for unity are real. And I've thrown my hat into that ring as well. This, as I said about 4 years ago, that we are a country where the peaceful transition of power is incredibly important, and it's owed to each and every one of us as Americans. And I absolutely expect and hope that will take place. I'd also just like to say that when the president tells people go home and go in peace, he is directing them to leave the Capitol building now, and they ought to do it.
And we do have the video right now. So, Kellyanne, thanks very much for your time. I appreciate that. Let's show the President of the United States.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
Well, the president did say go home there, but his message was wrapped in a lie. I want to bring in Chris Christie for more on that. He said the election was stolen. He said he won in a landslide. He said they're trying to take it away from you. You know that's not true. You've said it's not true. I guess this is a beginning for at least for him to say to go home. Apparently we lost Chris Christie. I'll bring that to Terry Moran.
Well, it's a half a loaf at best. Well, one of the things that President Trump insists upon is that he not ever be considered a loser. And I think this, in some ways, is gasoline on the fire. And in some ways, he may have lost control of these people. I remember I was at the rally where the crowd chanted, send her back about Ilhan Omar. And it seemed to me as if it was a moment when the crowd took that energy out from Trump himself, and they were in control. It's possible this mob is in control. This Trumpist mob is now in control, and he can't call them back. But that was a half-hearted effort at best.
At best. Again, he did repeat that the election was stolen, repeated that falsehood that the election was stolen. Sarah Fagan, it does appear, though, that you're starting to see more Republicans speak out more strongly about what they're seeing at this point, about what the president has done. We just heard Kevin McCarthy right there condemn the violence in clear terms as well, even though he disconnected it from any objections to the election. And he's right. You can have disagreements without it going into violence. For what we heard from the president enough right now, do you expect more Republicans to speak out?
I think that it was not enough. I think we will hear more Republicans speak out, and I won't be surprised if Republicans condemn his statement. I actually think it wasn't enough in two regards. This is not the time to relitigate the election. He's made his views very clear. Everybody knows them. This is about diffusing a very difficult situation, and he, I don't think, did that. And he also should have done it on camera, and he should have done it live, in my view.
Thank you,
This is a very serious moment for the country.
Yeah, we'll see if he does come out with more to say. I want to go to Martha Raddatz. Thank you, Sarah. Martha, you're getting some real-time reaction from Trump supporters who've been able to seize the video, I take it, on their phones.
Real time, exactly. I told them what the president said. They said, and as we said earlier, they're not leaving. This is beyond what Donald Trump says now. They say they have a right to be here. It's their freedom of speech. And if I say the president said everybody has to leave, they said it's our right to stay here. And in fact, George, I actually think the crowd in some cases is building, and it's a more radical part of the Trump supporters. I can see what I believe are probably the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys within the crowd and forming groups. They do have communications still in this area where the security entrance is to the Capitol. They are still demanding to be let in. If you talk to them about what happened inside the Capitol, they blame the Capitol Police for that. And they keep saying this is a peaceful protest.
Stormed the Capitol building. They are marching through now.
this way. Pull forward.
They went us down.
You're filming? You're just to hell with this? Who you with?